Hello, welcome to the HPTV podcast. Be back for Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. We're going to talk about the film and then talk about best way to adapt that part of the book.
So I do want to say I'm really proud of you. You almost never slip up and say HPV anymore. You say HPTV. You cut this down.
I'm cured. It took some learning, but yeah, the TV show wise, it's been quiet in the land, but we've been getting, I've been watching the theme park stuff. Steven, did you see it's now open to the general public? Just saying. But yeah, I'm living vicariously through TikTok,
That's right. I've tried to pulse because I have a few contacts and be like, hey, do you have any ins? But they don't, or they just use their ins on people they like more than me. They want to take their siblings or their spouses instead of me. It's like rude.
Now that team previews are over, now I don't think they're going to offer any sort of discounts for a hot minute. So
I know they're going to be.
You can come in November with me. It's fine.
I'm going to go sooner. I'm just figuring out the budget piece. I'm just going to not take my kids. I'm going to go by myself. I film tons of contact for the pod. That's what
Hannah doesn't listen to the podcast. I don't know how I'd sell her on it, but I'm like, I want to do one day with you or whoever else in the family wants to go. And I was like, I want to go by myself for a day. Could it be maybe it could be my birthday present.
Yeah.
Just let me bask in the theming and ride something too many times. And anyway,
you only get to use that card once a year, so you might as well. You'll have like a pretty young baby at that point,
you'll have
though.
A baby.
You'll be staying with somebody else, and you're gonna stick her with the baby.
Steven, the baby will be with you.
That's why they're going to Florida
for a birthday. I don't want stuff. So it's a free birthday gift to and it's not that I don't want to be there with my wife and child, but my child's not going to enjoy it. It's going to be too small. I should say
probably be irresponsible to take your child there.
It would at that age.
Unless you're just going for pictures and then leaving or something.
Have we clarified for our listeners that we don't know the gender of Mitchell's baby yet, and that's why he refers to the baby as it?
Yes, but it's also important to note that I have called babies it long before there was a discussion of pronouns. Like when Christopher, our oldest nephew, was born 20 years ago, and we knew it was a male, I still called it an it until 2 or 3. So it has, but yes, we don't know the gender of my baby. But even if we did, I still might call it an it. And I love babies. Babies.
So I was going to send you guys this TikTok I saw earlier. So this probably happened to you guys too, but as we have been sending each other more and more Harry Potter stuff, and as news comes out about the show, the algorithm has just really picked up on my Harry Potter love, and so I get so much stuff now, it's almost too much. But there's a really cool one, and I've seen similar TikToks before, but it was it starts with someone ripping the covers off of a set of Harry Potter books, and then make a custom set, which is pretty cool, and I'm curious how much that would cost to have someone do that. Because I definitely don't have skills to do it myself. But I thought it was really interesting because what she did was the spine of each book had a different wand on it, a different wand silhouette. And then kind of the inside cover page it was almost like a newspaper type print from, the movies or, the themes. And it was kind of cool to see what she had used as kind of the newspaper page for that book. And what was the wand for that book? So I was really curious, thinking wands first. What would you guys say if you were thinking through the different books? Which wand would you say represents each book?
Wow.
I think number 1 is Harry's wand.
It'd be Harry's, yeah.
Yeah.
And number 7 would be the Elder Wand.
Number 2 would be Ron's broken wand.
That would actually be cool. Not what she did, but I like that.
3 could just be an umbrella.
Sirius's wand? It's the Sirius book? No, he's not even his wand.
He doesn't even have a wand most of that book.
I was going to say Sirius wand.
Lupin?
That's something that never gets explained because doesn't he have one later? They wouldn't know where it came from or anything.
Yeah, that's true because he can't have his regular one.
Yeah.
He's in the underground wand business. Lupin for 3?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think Lupin could be good for 3.
I also for 2 would like an umbrella for Hagrid.
Oh, the umbrella could be cool.
That's good.
I was going to say the wands that get mentioned are the 4 champions.
Cedric.
The weighing. That's where they have the chapter called The Weighing of the Wands.
R.I.P. Cedric. Use his wand. 5, then Sirius's underground new wand.
I would maybe Umbridge for 5 would be cool.
Well, yeah.
When you said R.I.P. Cedric for a minute, I was worried Robert Pattinson died, but it's fine. He's fine. He's fine.
He's still good.
No, start rumors.
He's getting old like us, but
Well, 6 would be Snape. That's an easy one. Wait, Steven, do you have answers to these, or this is us conjecturing?
No, this is just conjecture. I mean, I could look up the video and see what she put, but I would remember like thinking like, oh, that'd be a cool thing to talk through with them to try and figure out which ones go where. Because you got to figure like, do Ron's and Hermione's ones go on? Do they get a spine? Which one would it be? Which one is more Hermione's story? Which one is Ron's story? If you want to go through those main characters, McGonagall does one of hers go somewhere in there,
It would be interesting. I remember I used to, as a kid, really think about between Ron and Hermione who was participating in the finale of each book, or like how big their role was in that, because they're both out of commission for a couple of them because of injuries and things. Yeah, but there's not really a book that I think truly separates one to let them shine, which is maybe good. Maybe
book 2 for Hermione, because she did like literally take the hit and get petrified. So maybe she gets to take that one.
I have one more theme park thought that kind of goes with this, and we could probably make this with AI. But when you get off the Ministry of Magic ride, the souvenir picture is a Daily Prophet thing. And now you can't be moving in it, which also seems a bit lame, but it is a clever idea for how to do like the after ride photo. So I think for the podcast, we all have to go ride that ride together, and that can be our cover photo.
Let's go right now. You pay.
Buy some plane tickets. Get your butts over here.
I fly you by.
If only. Well, that reminds me of the Holes song, and also they're remaking Holes with a girls' camp.
I know. Really? I love Holes.
Holes is a good book.
Is it like the same story, or is it supposed to be like a
best adaptation of a book?
It's a great adaptation of a book. Good book on its own. The story is going to be, they are going to be digging holes for a mysterious reason for an evil warden, but I don't think that they're keeping the full like backstory, the Yale Nance plot. But I think there is still a very much like an unlucky kid who's wrongfully there. Like, so it's going to be, which I think with these new reboots, if you're going to just gender swap them to make them different, I think you can take the concept and then you don't need to keep the rest. You go with it. Like, I don't know. I never saw the Ghostbusters that was gender swap, but I saw Ocean's 8 and I liked it, but it was missing something about that magic.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress.
It's just hard to capture. I mean, I don't love how they do that. If you want to give girls more roles and make more female-driven movies, give them their own movie. I think it's even more disrespectful. Like, you can redo these male, whatever. But I actually did like the female Ghostbusters. I feel like it's a completely different vibe. I think it's way more silly, but it's fine. I think
it's probably the way to go. Yeah, like, give it a different feeling. But I think it's been like none of them have broken through, even when they've been good movies. Like, there is, if they do Pirates of the Caribbean again, but with Margot Robbie, like, it's probably going to be really good. But that has to be quirky in its own way, separate from Jack Sparrow's.
They've done too many, no matter what.
Yeah, we're good on Pirates. So my oldest, she reads like it's her job. Like she's been going through books this thick, like one a day for some time. I don't know what we're gonna do over the summer because the library is almost out of books for that girl. But like there is no shortage of like stories about like girl focused stories that have casts that are primarily girls. Like I kind of wish they would do that instead of like take something and try and I wouldn't say distort it, but like change it in order to fit like a female cast. I don't know. I'm open to it. I'll watch it, but I'm really curious to see if they can pull it off. But
I'll try anything once. So let's get on to the film, the season of television, the conclusion of our epic tale, the Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Part 2. What are your general thoughts on this film? Where does it sit in your pantheon of Potter films?
Okay, this was, again, hard for me. Every time I watch the movie, I'm like, oh, man, 90, not even 90, okay, maybe 75 to 85% of this movie is so good. Like, I really like it. It doesn't feel like the book to me necessarily, but they hit a lot of beats from the book. I think it's a better adaptation than a lot of the movies in some ways. But man, they screw up the ending so bad that it pisses me off. And part of that is like, again, paying for the sins of past movies where they didn't like plant people or you don't feel for people. But I really like the beginning. I have this at 3. Part of me wants to swap it for 2 with 6, but it's hard because it's really up until the ending. I'm like, okay, this is a good movie. Like, it's not exactly how I imagined the book or anything like that. But then it gets to that end and I'm like, ugh. So I don't know. I guess if I was looking more at adaptation wise, it would be 2, But like an overall good movie that doesn't piss me off at the end, it would be 3 because it does piss me off at the end. So that's my not answer. Next.
I'm going through my notes actually because I was trying to remember what I put down. I was like when I originally ranked them all, and I went through before we did all the rewatches.
But yeah,
Can't find it.
I'm curious to know if those have changed or how much.
It's still pretty close, but I gotta find the right page, and I'm not gonna do it right now. But maybe next episode I can share. We can maybe all go through our original rankings versus eventual outcome. But no, I would say similar. I'd say this one is probably 2 or 3, but not with book 6 being adjacent. We know that book 6 is at the very end for me. Honestly, I think it's for me. I think it might be 7, 8, and then 1, but 1 might make its way above 8. And I know that that's not necessarily because of the its merits as a film, but a big chunk of that is the nostalgia piece. I'm giving that a lot of points for like this was the first movie and bring us into the world and everything. But I really liked it. I think of all the movies, this is the one that's the most like an action movie, like the pacing and just the battle scenes, and you get a lot of that really like big, this is a big conclusion to the series. I think they did that really well. And so there is this factor of just like, whoa, like this is epic, this is cool. It's the first time we really get to see like the Voldemort's army, like how many people he really has on his side. That's something even in the books, it's always kind of hard to imagine. Like you read through the books and she names these Death Eaters and it seems like there's maybe a dozen of them or something, or maybe 20. But then when you get to the, the Battle of Hogwarts,
makes
disproportionate. how many people show up from the Order that it's like, bam, here's a whole country.
Well, and that's what I mean. Yeah, it's the movie makes it feels bigger. You got more people on both sides, but it kind of in the books it almost feels like contained to like these 2 groups of people in the castle and stuff. And I know other people come, but you only get however many named Death Eaters, and so it doesn't seem as big. But the movie really accomplishes that well, and so you can kind of see the forces, rushing toward each other and clashing and everything. And just some really cool visual effects, some really cool like man magic is awesome moments, like when McGonagall puts the shield around the castle and stuff. Like those are some fun magical moments. So I think it's up there for sure. I think it's a really good conclusion. I just think that part 1 beats it on some really key pieces.
I don't believe in ranking things coming from the world. But I'm thinking of this as, so in gymnastics, there's a difficulty score and then there's an execution score, okay?
That's kind of how I am. I have 2 different scores.
This movie had so many things to do and it nails a handful of them. And even like enhances, or like you said, it makes it bigger. It visualizes some things that you couldn't quite just put into a book. And I think it does some of them really well. It misses on a couple of key things for me. And because of that level of difficulty, I remember walking out. I actually remember reading the book and walking out of the film thinking the plane was landed. Like they did a good job at it, because endings are hard. Okay. We tell George R. R. Martin. Anyway. Poor
Follow
George. We don't want to shame you.
Still alive?
Or Patrick Rothfuss.
No.
Yes. Wins is coming. Anyway. Here's where I'm at. It's 4 or 5, and it's because there's that ending. I think it's because I love the ending to the book so much. I don't like the way Harry deals with the wand in this, and they have that final wispy conversation.
It's unnecessary. That's my problem.
I'm not going to go into my howlers yet, because there are things that I absolutely love about this. It feels epic. Now, the battle at the end and how many bad guys are, that doesn't make sense with the Wizarding World proportionally. Also, you don't get the people coming in from Hogsmeade, because one thing we know about Voldemort is he needed to bring in like the werewolves and the giants. He was trying to get more evil being, no offense to the werewolves and the giants, but most of you are bad. He was trying to get more support. I think, and there's some high execution thing. The conversation with Dumbledore is okay for me. That passed the bar. But like the Prince's Tale, it's not bad, but it's so much richer in the book. It is set up so much better. And that's the thing, is actually seeing everything and a lot of characters converge on one place. Because like there are big characters that have off-screen and off-page deaths. There are characters that don't even come back for this that probably would have. And I'm like, ooh, I wonder if in the TV series they could have some people that don't even come back for the final battle in the book be there. Because why not? Why wouldn't they show up, for their kids? You'd think
get everyone in there.
Everyone to defend. Bring everybody back. Everybody. And then someone doesn't come back and we think, oh, that a-hole didn't want to come back. Like Johnny Galecki didn't want to come back for the finale of the Connors after 40 years of Roseanne and the Connors. Quit being selfish, Johnny. Anyway, so I just think there are a couple things that frustrate me
That
about
was something
this,
I
but
really loved about the book and had me excited for the movie was kind of that reunion. Like Oliver Wood's supposed to show up again. Like all these other characters you haven't
Yeah, I
seen for a
have
while
that in
who
my notes.
graduated. Like where's I
Neville's
do-
always forget his name.
grandma,
The Weasley brothers' friend. Yeah, Neville's grandma. Like those people
Oliver
are all
Wood.
supposed to show up. Yeah, that's what I
he
said.
did say
Oliver
that.
Wood, he was the first one, and the girls would like that because Oliver Wood was one of the girls'
Such a
favorite things in
crush.
the show.
They
They all
wanted
said he was
his
so
Oliver
hot.
Wood.
Just needed a little waxing, but he was hot.
Well, because I do love the scene when they come through the tunnel with Neville. I think that's really well done. And I think one of the best lines in the entire series is in there where he says, "What am I, Frankie first year?" And Seamus is like, "Well, that's Harry Potter." It was hilarious. And Frankie first year is like that's not from the books, but it's like an in-world thing that people would say, like, like a silly, stupid person calling him a Frankie first year is such a Hogwartian term. Anyway,
Just a noob,
I
yeah.
digress. Yeah. Do you guys have anything else positive to say before we'll come back to positives? But is there
No, we
something
will. I think just
applicable?
overall, I think what Jamie said is key though. Like there were so many good parts about it, but the ending just didn't hit, and then just the way he handles the wand. I know we'll get into it and stuff, but just some of those things that just don't match up. But I'd say the thing about the book that's so cool is that moment, like the conversation between Harry and Voldemort, so many things click into place in that moment, right? There's like the satisfaction of like, okay, all these things have really culminated in this moment and it's a book, so like it's based on the conversation and not necessarily the action. But because we're missing some of those backstories to Dumbledore's family, we don't understand, the Hallows to the degree that we should. We don't understand everything with the Horcruxes and how the Horcruxes are like there's one for each house at school, and that ties into Voldemort's like attachment to the school and Harry's attachment to the school. Like all of those things come clashing together and results in like this moment where boom. And I get that that's hard to show visually, but it's just like I wish that they could do more to get that part of the story to all click together. The flaw in the plan to work in Harry's favor and everything, all at that last second. And so flying all over the courtyard, I mean, it's kind of cool, I guess. I get it. It just
No.
it doesn't.
It's a
Terrible.
fail. I think overall it's like a good action-packed movie. I get why it's a lot of people's favorites who are movie fans. But I will say, like, I had my friends watch all the movies for my other podcast. And in this one, I spent the second half of this movie explaining so many things to them. Like, why is Dumbledore's hand black? Why, like all these things that like they quickly kind of try to explain. They're bigger things in the book. So you have to like expand on it. But if I just sat and watched this movie and didn't know the backstory, but there's a lot of cool like battle magic. And I get why people like it. It's a good action-packed movie, which we get in pieces in Harry Potter, but not a ton of.
It's true. It's true. Well, I think that leads us right into the Howler because we're kind of already talking about it. What are other things like what's the worst change? What do you think is the thing that really screwed up?
When I say I'm mad about the ending, I can't emphasize enough how stupid it is that
I
they
know.
fly
I
around
concur.
and their faces like combine. Like, I get why it was chosen, and I see how people could think it's not crap, but it's crap. And I want the conversation where, a lot of those things click into place, but also just the idea that everyone else stops. Also, there's these other small fights going on, right? Bellatrix versus 3 young girls. Like, I know they're separating by gender and stuff, but then Molly comes in. Like, I'm so glad they kept that moment. That worked really well, but it made me quite annoyed that they did not end up in the Great Hall, even if they had moved it to the courtyard and everybody had just stopped. And the way that Harry breaks through the magic and then they talk, but they duel and they're circling each other. That showdown moment did not need to turn into something so kinetic because there's plenty of other action. This movie starts with an action set piece at Gringotts, and then there's battle moments, and we pause for Dumbledore, we pause for the Princess Tale, we pause for Harry walking through the forest, which does make me emotional, which is
Me too.
a pro for the film. But then you kind of ended, you didn't need to end with a bang. You could have invented another fight that could have given more of that action. And the movie, I will say, it's not crazy long. And I think part of the reason some of it works is just because they made it 2 movies out of Final Book.
Yeah.
I have some
Well,
other
I can
negatives,
almost
but
see-
that's
Wait.
my howling.
Can I add to that one? Because I'm going to
Yeah.
talk about that one as well.
Do it.
Yeah, Harry explained so much, which Stephen talked about, and more explanation about like the Elder Wand's loyalty, which I think is weird even in the book. I don't buy that because Harry disarmed Draco, but whatever.
He pulled it out of his... So silly.
But such a big part of that. For one, I always say that movie, and when I first saw it, I'm like, Harry Potter could have just gone and lied. No one saw him kill Voldemort. It's just them two. No one saw anything.
That's one of my notes too, yeah.
A big part of Voldemort dying is that, like, Harry's been taking out these Horcruxes one by one, I mean, as a group, and then the snake, which is killed a little bit before this in the book, is like the last straw. And Voldemort dies as just like a weak human, basically. And that's such a big part of Voldemort's death. It's like he's done everything to cling on to life, everything to cling on to power, and Harry's slowly demolished that. So, like, it's not like the death is anticlimactic in the book. It's just built up to so long that it's just it's kind of less than in the movie, but you don't need it to be crazy, and you don't need them grabbing each other's
almost
faces.
like the climax, like the build-up is like, okay, eliminating Bellatrix as an obstacle, like all these other things happening in the battle, and then Harry revealing like all of your protections are gone, like that moment where we realize that Voldemort is like not just vulnerable, but like he's basically done for. Like, that's the climax. It doesn't have to be like, I mean, I think all the fighting stuff can lead up to that, but a really important part of what you said is that there's been so much lying going on and like disinformation that I think one of the key things of this happening in the Great Hall with like tons of people watching is like it's a spectacle, and there's so many witnesses of the way it goes down, of like Harry tearing Voldemort apart, revealing all his lies and his deceptions,
yes,
and then killing him. And because otherwise the Death Eaters could leave from there and make up some story. No, it happened this way, right? And if they die off in a canyon or whatever that thing is, where they are in the giant ravine, that's where it all goes down. Like, there's no witnesses to that. So how do they know how of them actually died, or did he die, or did he escape again as a spirit? And so, or part of the last part of his soul or whatever. But yeah, so it has to be in front of a bunch of people in order for it to like stick and for it to remain valid and for the wizarding world to then coalesce again and become.
Who's going to write about it
society.
in the history books if Hermione didn't see it? Sorry, Mitchell, you can go on with your howlers. I just had to add to that so we weren't going back.
I have very minor things. They're still rushing some random dialogue. Bothers me. Griphook does it once and I'm like, oh, shut up. Then Harry, knowing that she's like not letting the Harry and Ravenclaw stuff kind of play out how it had in the books.
Yes.
That felt stupid to me. And also the Carrows, I think something that they could, I know this is for later in the episode, but get over it. They could expand upon we could check in at Hogwarts a bit more. And I think having the Carrows kind of be this new face in the last season, this weird brother-sister combination, and then getting to see them kind of their downfall at the end, because they're really just these two random lieutenants. And I love, like I said, I love how the movie feels epic, and you had like Snape standing over the courtyard, and it feels this military feeling, and they kind of look like these evil henchmen. I'm like, ooh, they would be fun to get some story with. But yeah, I want the whole sequence of Harry running into McGonagall and everything, and get that and the way that connects to Rowena Ravenclaw and all that, I think, and explains the Bloody Baron, who has never been mentioned. Whereas if he's something that looms over those first two or even if he kind of looms and then he doesn't really show up, if he's in those first couple and then we get that callback, it'll play out really well. So those are just some little, there are a few things that play out, but those are the PV ones.
My biggest complaints are around all the deaths. I think we talked about this last time, but the deaths that don't really hit because we don't know the characters that well. So Fred, Tonks,
although I think they could have had Freds. That's the thing that pisses me off. Is like
they could have. You're right.
Few movies, Fred and George do have a bigger role. They could have given Fred a proper death send off. It pisses me off almost more than the Voldemort thing, because Fred dying is like such a big moment and also such a quick moment. Remember, like, it's the end of that chapter and you're literally like, wait, what happened? What happened?
I literally had to go back and be like, what? Yeah, no, it's wild. And I think the same thing when you look at like some of the positives. So like the house elves, right? And Creature leading the house elves and then coming to join the fight, which again makes more sense once you have like these other creatures pulled in from Voldemort's side and everything, right? To kind of boost his numbers. So those, and then like Percy's return, like in the movie, that's like barely even happens. Like no one really understands, I think, what a betrayal it was and how big the fight was and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's just some of those moments, and again, we've talked about so many times, like it just ties into like previous movies, and it wasn't set up so that we would care, and so it's really hard to get a payoff, those emotional hits in this finale.
Okay, here's mine. Some will be kind of repeats. I have later on in the section for things that they should do in the TV show, and so this is kind of relates to that, which is a lot of like, again, things that should have been introduced before, but Aberforth needed to be the guy from the Hogshead. Like it just,
Yeah,
that's
being
not
out of the blue,
mentioned.
yeah.
It's so confusing. He does not look like Dumbledore. Just because he has a long beard, they're like, oh, I thought that was like, no, they don't have the same eyes or nothing.
All those white people look the same, Jamie. Come on.
In England, yes. Just kidding. Okay, the polyjuice potion. This is the first time it really bothers me that it does not change the voice with Hermione being Bellatrix. I
But
think
she is so good.
she's so good in that scene. Helen
That is a
Bonham
really
Carter
great scene.
does such a good job playing Emma Watson. It's so good. But it just, I don't know, for me in the book, it almost seems like it takes the goblins a little bit longer to figure it out. In this, it's like Hermione didn't even like study Bellatrix or try. She's just like, hi, like, I want to get my bolt. Okay, then I have Fred. I have a long thing on Fred, but I already went off about that. After the battle, Mitchell touched on this, the Elder Wand. This pisses me off. First, repair your wand. It's such a big thing that Harry's wand is broken. It's like he's so sad about it in the books. He doesn't
It's
even
such an
like
important piece
bother.
of him, right?
Yes, and he doesn't have his little sack with him with his wand in it. But repair the wand. Just be like, Hermione, my wand, so I can repair it. And then he just does it. In the book, although I do think maybe it's better to destroy it, but in the book he puts it back with Dumbledore where it like belongs, so that it kind of like dies with Dumbledore. I do wonder if like someone else one day broke into Dumbledore's tomb and took it, like how that works, but I don't know. Harry says it dies. I don't know. He knows
Here's the
wand
piece
magic.
on that, because this is what we know about it, right? Because Harry disarmed Malfoy with a different wand,
Yes.
right? He took a different wand. So like all his years as an Auror or with his kids, like no one like caught him by surprise and disarmed him. And so that wand that's yes buried in Dumbledore's tomb, it owes its allegiance to somebody. So like it kind of has to be destroyed, or else it's gonna end up coming back into play at some point. So I get that, and I understand why it needed to happen, but it didn't. Yeah, with him not fixing his own wand first and stuff, he ends the story wandless, and
No, he has Draco's wand
just without explanation. Well,
forever.
Who would
He's a
want to use
Malfoy.
Draco's wand?
It's loyal to him now.
Pansy Parkinson?
Okay, and then there's the pause, and they're like, all the bodies are there, and everyone's crying, and that's the one Fred moment we get, which is like just kind of a walk-through quick thing. And then Tonks and Lupin are just laying there, and we don't even care about them anymore. I don't even really remember them mentioning that they have a child. It must have been a quick thing. And then when Harry finally defeats Voldemort and just walks back in by himself after doing that by himself with no one watching, everyone's just happy, and Slughorn's like, Harry, and like,
They're like, what happened? You came back? Is he
you would
dead?
think people would still
No
be
explanation.
mourning and crying and upset. Like, it's just like, it's fine now. Like, I'm sure it's like people would be torn, but I did not like that.
Lavender dies, doesn't she? Like,
Yes,
it's pretty clear
It's
she's
more
I
her
don't-
body,
whereas
but
in
does
the
she
book it's
die,
up in the air.
or is she?
In
I
the
think she's-
book, in the
in
movie,
the book
it's
it's
more
up in the
clear,
air.
right?
In the movie she's dead.
Yes.
I don't think she needs to die.
She
but
might
I
just
want,
be a werewolf,
yeah.
I think, in the book. That's how I always took it. I'm like, maybe
Maybe.
she's a werewolf. That
There's
would
like
be cool.
55 people that died, so you got to
She
get
could
those
have a
numbers
spin-off.
somewhere.
A lavender brown Hell at the Moon spinoff. And then my last thing was Neville killing Nagini later than when he pulls out the sword, and Neville's head's supposed to be like on fire, but I know we don't need all that. I just think there's such a thing in that moment where like Neville immediately kills a snake and Voldemort just knows. I do think the scene where he does kill the snake is a cool scene, and I like all the snaky smoke, but it makes me mad that Neville doesn't do it in that big moment. And when Harry like is like, bam, I'm alive, and Hagrid's like, what the fudge? Okay.
The part is so satisfying in the book, though, when
It
he
is.
pops up and yeah, like Hagrid is. It's
And
like,
you
oh,
feel
he's over here
so
kicking some
bad for
butt.
Hagrid because he's just like
I
carrying his little
know.
buddy. Okay,
Harry had to
pensive.
see them.
Do we want to do positive and then go back to the?
I feel like the changes that could have been made are mostly big. Like, and we did we've explored through some of these, like,
Not
why
screwed
did
up.
they do it this way? But I'll do good. I'll do a few little good things. What do you have, Jamie?
I just hold on. I did forget to say about the McGonagall Ravenclaw room scene. I don't like that them cutting that because it shows how much Harry cares for McGonagall, and there's a lot of things in these last couple movies where she like is basically telling him that she cares for him and that she's like she loves him, and he never reciprocates that. And this is a like big way to show that in the book, and but I also hate spit, and I don't want to see anyone ever get spit on, so I'm okay with not seeing that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think that part, like, I remember it making me emotional. That and Fred's death, like, quite got
gosh.
me at the end of this. And Maggie Smith, obviously was incredible. Rest in the most peace. And she gets to show off, like, when she brings the statues alive, which is a cool addition.
yes.
I mean, in the book, we know that the suits of armor do, but in this suits of armor, I guess it's the statues, and the way she's excited about it. I think the one where she tells him to blow up the bridge that I don't think should exist is a little silly, and Seamus just being a pyro just doesn't work for me.
So call back to book one.
So I don't know if this is a small change that could help, but I don't like the boathouse with too much boat. Anyway, get over.
The layout of the castle and the grounds in general, right? It became such an issue. I feel like over the course of the series, you just never knew where anything was and like what the heck was even happening. So
and now that
keep that
we're doing this gigantic thing. But anyway, good stuff. Obviously, Maggie Smith did wonderful. I feel like we've pointed out just the feeling of it felt like a big action blockbuster without, I didn't like how many evil wizards there were, just because like even if people were jumping on that bandwagon and all the scum, like, and people were coming from Europe, it still felt a little wonky. I like the way Rupert Grint is chewing while Aberforth is rambling. That's one of my positives. Maggie Smith was a big one.
Maggie, well, I'll say this about Maggie Smith, like throughout the movie, she's given like a couple lines, but she tells so much within those lines. Like she was just so good. I love Maggie Smith.
Well, like I said, they're never going to beat those older actors. Like everyone comes in and does so well. And that's like, I think I've said Harry walking through the forest is pretty well done. It does make you emotional. Like him that battle going through his mind, like I think you can see that. I think that Daniel Radcliffe does a good job. I think this is one where things could have gone quite badly, and he does very well. I think, yeah, I don't know. It's an overall enjoyable film. I don't love the way the staircases are, but like some of the extra battle stuff where they're going around the grounds, like it works.
I did not see you going for the staircase.
You know what? I'm trying to think of positives, and I liked the movie. I just watched it, but I'm coming up with more negatives. Maybe there's a reason this is 5 on my...
I'll give you my positives before I give any more negatives.
You guys go positives.
I like the tone of the opening scene, and someone talked about that Snape standing there. I do like that. You guys know I love a shot of the Dementors.
It's a classic framing, but it's so good.
I love the line, "How dare you stand where he stood," and the way it's delivered. I love everyone kind of protecting Harry when they're like, "He's right here," which happens in the bookish. Fred and George, when they're getting ready, I do like the scenes of everyone prepping for the battle. Again, I wish I knew all these people a little bit more, but the Fred and George one just makes me bawl because like I already knew it was going to be happening.
Looking at each other and
yes, and there's just like this understanding that they know, like for the first time, this is actually probably like.
Whereas
dangerous.
like the Tonks and Lupin underserved romance where they reach hands for each other, and I'm like,
take a step. You guys have a minute
sad.
to take a step. I like the cool battle magic. Kingsley like slurping up that guy or whatever he does and like pushing him out. I wanted more of that. I thought that was cool. And like the way Bellatrix dies when she's like sucked up or something. I love the callbacks to the trolls, to the pixies, to the spiders. I love how they show all that because that is in the book. But it's just cool to see, I think, even from moviegoers, like hitting things from all the past movies and books. I actually prefer Harry stabbing the diadem, which they do in the movie and not in the book, because I think that would have been really confusing for people to be like, wait, that fire can just destroy, because they don't explain the fire and what type of fire it is and all that. And they don't have time to explain it. So I like that he just stabs it. Okay. I do not like the walk to the forest in that Harry's supposed to just decide to do it alone. He's supposed to be under the cloak, but I do love the moment where when he talks to Hermione, what's not supposed to happen. And she says, "I'll go with you." I cry every time. I'm crying a little bit right now because it's so sweet. Just like sums up their friendship relationship in such a sweet way. Because it's like it's just like she's like, "I'll go with you. I'll die with you." And Ron does kind of awkwardly stand there. And then I'm really glad they kept the "not my daughter, you bitch." Is this true? I have a memory of them going back and filming that because they didn't originally film it. Am I just making that up? Or was this not a rumor that like they screened it and that wasn't in it and people demanded that was in it or something?
I'll do some research.
Because I have a vague remember of that. Okay. Anyway, those are my positives. I have more things that could be changed after Stephen goes.
I mean, I think my positive, I talked about a lot of it at the beginning, right? They made it a big action movie. I thought the pacing was good. It moved along really quick, right? Once you're into Gringotts and like everything just kind of flows. You get like enough pauses to catch your breath. But then it's boom, boom, boom. And so I think it worked really well as a culmination, as a final film. But I think I hit most of the things I liked. There's a lot of good things. The score was good. I enjoyed the the action sequences and stuff. I do think that there's room for them because we were talking about just having so many bad guys, right? I do think that there's room for them to explain a little bit more around like the disinformation campaign that Voldemort's been doing, because I think it's really interesting, this idea of, right, is like a lot of those people, they might think they're on the right side and fighting, but then it's because they've been fed bad information. I think that there's a little bit more for like the wizarding world being divided over this, and not Voldemort and his 50 people trying to take over everything.
5 million people.
I mean, yeah. Well, that's what I mean, is like the concrete numbers of people we know about. There's probably like 50, but in the movie, yeah, it looks like you've got thousands swarming the castle and stuff. It's not quite accurate. So not a lot of points for accuracy, but I think a lot of points for just being.
I do like that scene with Neville on the bridge, and he's like taunting them, and then has to run. Although I hate the explode and then the person barely held on in movies. That trope. It's like, you would all die. Just have them make it over.
Well, and that's one scene too. I think there's a lot of really cool cinematic moments, right? Where you
Yes.
get like the castle, and you get like a lot of that's done really well with the cinematography, and just like it's very epic looking. The other thing that you guys had mentioned, one of them, is just all the different things that they were able to add. Like, this always annoys me that there's things that they left out, but there are things like all of the suits of armor and stuff like that, right? There's these other things added in. Oh, Seamus and his need to blow things up, or his gift for blowing things up, right? Being left, because that's a movie thing. That's not in the books. And so it's funny that kind of got pulled forward, and they used that again later and everything. So I like that they added some of those like nuances and things to build out the world a little.
And why didn't you do that throughout? Just kidding. Okay, some of my easy changes, some probably aren't very easy, but I think I hate how in movies they keep them pretty. Like, they all should have been burned to bits from the vault. They were supposed to be burnt, like Katniss Everdeen in Catching Fire. She's supposed to be on fire, but they have to keep them pretty. I already said the McGonagall thing. In the last movie, it was Daniel Radcliffe's makeup. In this one, it's Snape. Why so much eyeshadow? It bothered me the moment I started watching this movie when it first was in theater. Like, he has apparent like purplish dark eyeshadow, and I'm like, okay, people. I don't know if it's because they like color correct in some weird way or something, but it makes the makeup very obvious. Not to criticize the makeup people. And then there's a couple lines that really bother me. Luna says something like at Shell Cottage is about the, what do you call those things? The wind chimes, about how they keep evil away. I'm like, we don't need that line. And then one of my biggest pet peeves of all time from these movies is when Snape says, "Look at me," and then he says, "You have your mother's eyes." He should, just like in the book, say, "Look at me," because we've been hearing from everyone that Harry has his mom's eyes. And then you might not connect it then, but then you'll connect it in a few more minutes when you see the whole background of them. And I just think that's like such a good moment where like that clicks for you when you read the book and you're like, oh my gosh, oh, Mitchell left. That's why he had him look at him, is because he wanted to see Lily's eyes as he was dying.
Well, you can even pull back to that moment, right? Is you can finish that memory of Snape's with him staring into Lily's eyes, and then cut from that to him staring into Harry's eyes is kind of a quick throwback, right? There's really cool ways to just connect those things that I think would hit home emotionally.
And it's also like, this is the only reason I saved you. It's because you have your mother's eye, but you're going to name your kid after me.
No other reason.
I guess we'll wait for Mitchell. Mitchell, come back. Come back.
I was just looking up because I was trying to remember where Harry gets like the really bad haircut from Hermione. I was trying to remember, does he keep the haircut all the way through the end of the last movie?
The haircut, I mean, even before she gives the haircut, I think his hair is horrible.
No, it was already bad, but then when she cuts it, it gets so much worse.
Apparently once you leave Hogwarts, no matter what, you get a 40-year-old man's haircut. Like, his hair bothers me. He just looks so old. Where it's like in 5, he has like that short hair, and it's actually like, oh, is Daniel Radcliffe attractive? And then you get here, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Never mind. There, yeah.
Hello.
There he is.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Did you guys have any other little changes? Or easy changes?
I was going to say, I think one is, and I think this could even be kind of like maybe a cool bottle episode, is planning the heist. Like, I get that from the time they go off to Gringotts, like, they're off to the races, right? And the pacing changes. But, like, I think there could be some really cool stuff there around understanding the Horcruxes and the Hallows, right? As they're working through that stuff post burying Dobby. And then, like, planning all that out. Because in the books, I mean, I don't know that it specifically lays it out, but it's like a week or more that they're there, like, working with Grip Hook, trying to get everything and decide exactly how they're going to do all this. And in the movie, it's just like the next day or something, right? That they're leaving, it feels like it happens so fast. So I think there's a lot of potential for like some character development and some, people to understand like, hey, there's a plan here. They're not just running into this, because that's the big difference, is that they learn from the ministry, right? That they had a plan that they missed a lot of really key things. So they're able to do the Gringotts plan better. And then when they have to pivot to Hogwarts, it's a big deal because Hermione says it like, we don't have any time to like plan anything or get anything ready. And Harry's like, we got to go now. So they're flying by the seat of their pants again. And I like the idea of drawing that contrast. So that's like the one thing that I would spend more time on.
I like that they're in the book. There's this tension with Griphook and with Fleur, and
Bill
obviously
telling him about Griphook.
We should know. Yeah, we get to know. I think that speech where he says goblins consider something goblin made. Essentially, if you buy a goblin made thing, it is rented, and upon death, it should be returned to the maker. So the maker is the owner, not the purchaser. I think that is like something that the logic tracks. Like I get why goblins would feel that way, and so I think if that was explained to Harry, and that it's more than just Griphook being like, I tricked you because you thought you were tricking me. Although even in the book, I thought, why can't Harry just be like, hey, I'll give you it after I'm done with it? Anyway.
I know. That's my thing. I always say, it's like, okay, or just when that moment when they're in the vault, be like, hey, I'll just stab this with that sword and then you're out of here, buddy. Just stab
stab it and go.
Stab and go.
But they did need it for, they thought they had more.
They thought they needed it for more. Which,
and then they had to, kill Griphook, and they killed Bagrod. Is that the other goblin's name? Like in the books, they kind of run off. Like they just get out of there on the dragon, and there's not like all the death.
They kill no, I think Voldemort does kill the goblins in the book. I think there is a
because I know he's in a room full of wizards when he gets Harry, the news, and he kills everyone in the room.
Maybe not. Okay, maybe that's it. But Harry like flashes.
But they specifically in the movie they show Griphook like one of the dead bodies on the floor, and I was like, oh, yeah, really? Because you kind of it's mixed feelings, right? Because you're kind of like a little traitor, but at the same time they plan to screw him. So.
But with Bill talking about that, and just in general, I think this is a theme the show could hit on a lot more, is the way wizards have treated other creatures. I don't even know, it's like, but goblins and giants. And so, like, they've been so afraid of them that they've like put them in these little bubbles. And the reason, like someone mentioned earlier, is that like why they're all keen, not the goblins necessarily, but other species, I don't know, are keen to join Voldemort is because wizards have like not allowed them to use their magic or not allowed them to do this or that. And I mean, it's the whole house elf thing too. So it's just like a big lesson about like, this is not how we should be treating people or creatures, whatever they are.
Well, I think there's just so much there too around like understanding them, right? So if you understand, like Voldemort completely ignored house elves and their ability to apparate into places that he couldn't and stuff, right? And so that's kind of what did him in the end. And then with the goblins, if you stop to understand like how they really think about these items, then that could really change the way that wizards interact with goblins, right? But instead they just kind of like forced them out. And so had Harry known that a little earlier and maybe been more mature, he could have leveled with Griphook about that, and taken his understanding of what's important to Griphook and built trust, right? Instead of just
let me borrow the sword for a week.
Conflict. Really. But there's some life lessons in there that I think would be kind of cool to spend a little time on.
I think that this movie, it actually reminds me of Goblet of Fire in that there are so many events and sequences that could be their own episode. Like, each task could be an episode. Whereas here, planning and that building that, if we're coming off the high of a mid-season finale of the Malfoys and then kind of coming back down to earth at Shell Cottage and then going into the Ministry being a full episode of them, like, we should be so fearful for them getting caught. I just think there's so many different spots where they could do a full episode on smaller events, although you want it obviously to have pace, and you got to have some A and B plot lines in places, which could be cool because once they arrive at Hogwarts, there's so many different people to keep track of. So I just think, those were pretty well done in the movie for the most part, but the way that they could be followed and segmented out. And the real question is, how much will they slow down? Could they do a bottle episode? Essentially, it makes me think of a 2-man play if they just did Harry and Dumbledore in Gringotts for a whole. Could they keep it gripping, and would the performer of Harry be good enough? John Lithgow would, I'm sure, to really keep us on the edge of our seats for even if it's only like a 40 minutes episode. What did you think I said? King's Cross?
No, King's Cross. I heard Gringotts. You said Gringotts. And I was like, wait, when's Dumbledore and Harry in Gringotts? Like, I'm thinking back to book one. I'm like, well, that's Hagrid.
Don't go changing that kind of stuff, Mitchell. Come on. It's supposed to be based.
It's like, I want it to be Gringotts and not King's Cross.
Let's start this over. I think King's Cross, the train station dream after death-ish between Bardo sequence of Harry and Dumbledore could be a bottle episode, but it would take a lot of work to be just a two-hander where they're literally sitting on that bench and talking. It'd have to like kind of feel like a play. They'd have to go through those emotions, but also like tell story. Like anyway,
I think
just
that's
saying
like half an episode. I just think once you
It could
pick
be a
up that
shorter
pace,
one. You know, they have like sometimes there's like a 35-minute episode, and all the
That
others
is
are
true.
50. Like there could be something like
same with the Prince's Tale.
That's
But
the
also
penultimate
the
episode.
question is, does that, if this is a week-to-week series, does that take away too much of the momentum for the finale and the action when a lot of this is otherwise going to be so eventized? Because they could also just try and squeeze this everything that happens in this movie into 4 episodes. Technically, that would still be double the runtime if they did hour-long episodes. But I really think it easily could be 6 because, yeah, everything just Gringotts and before that's its own. Getting to Hogwarts should be another one. And then those different parts of the battle and the different ways that it paces and slows down. And then the ending, like we got to give it time. The other question is, are they going to do the epilogue as part of this? Are they going to tease Cursed Child?
Because
if this does
Harry
well,
lying to his kid, are going to tease that.
if this does well, you know they're going to do a Cursed Child sequel series.
No matter what. Until you actually
unless you're in Slytherin.
No, he says it doesn't matter where you go.
I missed the end of the movie discussion because I was having internet problems. I have 2 things to run by you guys. One is, this is maybe something that needs to be expanded upon for the series for me to invest in it, is Ron and Hermione's kiss. Where it happens, how it hasn't. Were you into it? Were you like, yes, these people are in love? Because it didn't seem like it to me. And 2 is the dome, the visualize the protection of Hogwarts with the dome, which I think, was not explicitly said in the book. So anyway, if you guys have any thoughts on those 2 things, and then you can finish up your Marauders mapping.
I think there's so many hints about Ron and Hermione, really from book 3 on.
Yeah.
I think it's a great payoff. Even in the
But the
book,
way they actually come together and get to hots for each other and really go for.
I think there's a lot of tension there. But I agree with Book Harry when he's like, right now, this is when we're deciding to do this. Like, it's like, come on.
That would have been a great line to have. Like, come on, people, we've got
right after a Horcrux murdering. And then what was your say? Oh, I like the dome thing. I think it adds to the cool magic, and like that shot of like when they're staring out and they're all like the 5 million people that Voldemort all of a sudden has are all.
When it starts to break down and like it's like flaking and falling, like that was a really cool visual just to kind of get like, okay, the protection is coming down, right? They're about to get in, and it's about to happen.
With
it's a very
Voldemort's bonus henchmen, these junior Death Eaters of sorts, because you kind of have one that gets a lot of the screen time in the lines, and Fenrir Greyback is like the muscle for him, whereas normally he'd be the muscle for the Death Eaters, but it's like a big deal that he's not a full Death Eater. And like, I'd like them to have 2 or 3 maybe. I guess you have the Carrows too, so it's a lot, but this season could almost have like, there's this new undercurrent of underworld happening because Voldemort's in power, and you could like, you could make them a little bit more 3-dimensional, give 2 or 3 of them names, and Fenrir have a little bit more about his place in the world.
The new order of things is an interesting one too. I think maybe I'm just, I don't know, kind of interested in that kind of stuff. But you think about, in the new world where Voldemort, if he were to win, right, it's you kind of have like the purebloods. You got the half-bloods. You've got the
quarter bloods.
What is Umbridge column? The quarter bloods. We're quarter a lot of different things. No, but what is
4?
What is Umbridge column? She calls the centaurs.
She calls them half-breeds, Steve. She calls them
half-breeds. That's the word I was looking for. Anyway, and so then you have like these actual creatures, right? And so it's interesting that they're all kind of unified, but they're not able to see that, like, hey, if this group actually wins, like, you're gonna go back to being stepped on, and
someone else is just gonna put you in your
like
place.
Greyback. It's kind of like,
worse.
What's he actually gonna get by supporting them and stuff, other than maybe some jail time because they lose.
Voldemort's going to be probably better in some ways for some of these, like, the Dementors, they're going to be able to run rapid. But like, when it comes to like goblins, who I will say don't really pick a side, they probably should pick the side of the wizard, like of the good wizards, I don't know, it's very bad.
But each of those dynamics is interesting because it's like, will they not let Greyback become a Death Eater because he's not fully human. So they'll use them for their power, but they won't actually make their life like Lupin's trying to convince the werewolves to some degree, like, your life's not going to be better. He's going to use you. And then, yes, maybe you can be out and about, but you're not going to have some sort of flourishing lifestyle. And the goblins
just going back to stepping
are the ones who like get positioned, to be like, well, we can still be the money people, but I don't know. I guess during the books, I was like, wait, of course you should realize that Voldemort would not be a good person to lead while you're anyway. I think that's important. There's all those little dynamics that are going to be able to be explored more.
It makes me wonder, like, the Dementors, we never really get a full sense of like how, I don't know, how cognizant they are, right? Like, how capable are they of like rationalizing and understanding? Because even if Voldemort's going to let them loose on, all the people who are against him, like, when those people run out and now you've got like more Dementors because they keep reproducing because they're feeding so much, then they're going to come for Voldemort's supporters and he's going to have to go and do something again, So it's just interesting, like, thinking about the next step. And I don't know that that's fleshed out or can be, because otherwise the story
which is, that's hinted at in the books, and that's a cool thing they could do with the series if they wanted to, is flesh more of that out.
Spend a little time there.
And what about the mermaids?
Yeah,
they just have their
those
little
ugly
lake.
Mofos.
I feel like they could have easily poisoned the lake and just killed all, but the mermaids couldn't really do much to help either.
Yeah, the mermaid's able to come out of the water and fight them on land.
They come out for the funeral, or at least stick their heads out.
Yeah, that's true.
Funeral that's not there.
Yeah, you need that funeral.
Anything
We
else
want
to be
all
expanded?
the funerals. Well,
how many episodes? I think we've talked about this. It should just be as many episodes as we possibly can. I'm thinking through like just like the different pieces, right? When you were talking about the set pieces before and like the sequences. So I think like the beginning of the movie, maybe up through the wedding, could be an episode, or up to the wedding, and then you have the.
I want to see that
at
snitch
the very
cake.
least. Oh yeah, the floating snitch cake, that would be cool.
Yeah.
But then you have the but like the Ministry of Magic's section, right? And then they're off in the camping for a while. Like, I feel like there are actually these breaks that could easily fit into a good, 10 to 12 episode
14.
Season. And
35.
20. Why not go back?
I will do a
22,
TikTok
like
sketching out one
shows.
of each. Well, they could do a break in the middle of the season as well. They could have like a 3 to 6 month break. That way you let the VFX team catch up and everything. But I think Golden Snitch wise for this, other than the cake itself, which is obviously critical, it's really about the ending and making sure that we care about these people beforehand and that we feel like we have a satisfactory ending to their story. And to some degree, we know the ending. So it's like, can you make sure that is emotionally satisfying, honors the book, but also, is really richly depicted visually?
Well, and I just think the coolest thing about this part of the book is that, like we talked about before, you're seeing like Oliver Wood, you're seeing Neville's grandma again, like people we haven't probably seen and at this point in the show in a few seasons. And in the book you haven't seen in a few books, but it's like paying homage to all that. You're seeing all these characters that we should have grown to love or at least know who they are at this point. So I don't know. I think of like the endings of other big shows of like, or like Game of Thrones, where it's like we followed all these different people on their journeys and then they all come together in the end, which wasn't done that great. Harry also still the protagonist, because as opposed to different shows where other people are the protagonists walking around, it's still Harry. So, and it still comes down to Harry. But the fact that he does it for all these people he's met on this journey, and he does it for the love, and love is just the big thing at the end, and that Narcissa saves Draco because of love, and all these people are there because they love each other, and people are coming in to protect their kids from this battle. And McGonagall clearly doesn't love the little children because she lets them stay in battle, but in the book she just. But I just need that all to come to a head, and then kind of slowly end off with like just Harry doing what he has to just save this world that we hopefully will care about at this point.
All I can think about now is Game of Thrones and how long you wait for some of those people to get to see each other again. And it was satisfying once in a while. And then I was thinking, well, if George R. R. Martin wrote this, what book does Harry die? And then if it's like Harry Potter and it's like people doing it in his honor, but like there was at George R. R. Martin's, you have these two great evils and you don't really know which one is. And I'm like, how would he go after one? He'd kill his protagonist and then still have a single target. Anyway, really not worth the tangent.
Very different storytelling. Like
yeah.
He's doing multi-story. He's telling different stories within an overall world that is supposed to come together in the end. This is a story about one boy, and then the people that
Also,
come into his life.
That's
and
not
leave
George's
and
ending.
die.
That's Benioff and Weiss, David Benioff and Weiss. Let's blame them for all of their horrible life decisions and be a little annoyed with them. I've not watched Three Body Problem in protest. I have a couple more quick thoughts that are not that important. One, this movie reminded me that the Green Gots roller coaster is lovely, but should actually have a massive roller coaster portion, should be much longer other than the cutscenes. And also, it annoys me that on most streamers, and I don't think Netflix was always like this, you can't pause it and look around. Because like when it went to the DA section where you go through the tunnel, I wanted to pause it and look at faces. Well, no, I don't have the ad version. I'm rich.
I'm not.
Really not.
I have the ad version.
It just like darkens it and shows the title in big, so you can't really see what's on the screen. Anyway, that bothers
Movies
me.
Anywhere. That's where I watched it. Okay, I have a lot of
I could have done
things.
that.
But can I say, speaking of like Universal, when they're walking through the tunnel from Aberforth, from the Hogshead to the Room of Requirement, I was like, this is the line for Hagrid's coaster. This is what it feels like. I hate that line. I feel like claustrophobic in that tunnel. Okay, my random things. I think it's cool when they destroy the Quidditch pitch. I think all these wizards in this whole world need to work on their aim. There's so many times, like when Neville's running, when the Snatchers are at them in the woods, no one can hit anyone. It's like, come on, guys. We need to have some aiming classes at Hogwarts. That's what I'm going to put.
Stormtroopers.
Draco Malfoy is way better at apparating than Harry and Ron. He just apparates immediately to where his friends are and grabs them. He just knows. Malfoy is back to needing some toner in his yellow hair. I love the line, if we die for them, Harry, I'm going to kill you. And then I do like Voldemort speaking in their heads and how they did that. I do think the second time it goes on a little long, but I get it. And I do think it's like cool how they filmed that. Kind of felt like the Shrieking Shack with all like the camera movement. I love the always. Oh, I would say this. The mom is that, okay, I don't think I finished really saying this, but like that Harry's last walk to the forest, like he's supposed to be under the cloak. He's only supposed to really run into Neville and talk to Neville. And again, Neville's such a big part of the story, but he's not in the story a ton. But the mom, Lily, kind of bugs me. Like, I like the way she delivers the line, but it just looks like she could give a flying F that her son's seeing her for the first time really ever because he was a baby when she died. She's just like so stone-faced. I think Gary Oldman gives such a better performance at that moment where I'm like, lady, be a little teary-eyed or like show some emotion. That is one of the things that bugged me. I actually like Gambon in the King's Cross scene, but I wish it was more like the book where he like reaches out to hug Harry and he's like, my boy, or whatever he says. Anyway, that's all. And then Harry's a liar at the end to his kid.
You know what I also don't like is when Neville is randomly like, I need to tell Luna I have the hots for her.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who's like, yeah, ship all the kids. And I was like, oh, that's dumb. Don't just put your two underdog like characters together.
Off,
That's not how life works.
Not everyone marries.
There's only two left from
someone
that main six. So
I do like the Voldemort awkward Malfoy hug when he hugs.
Oh yes, that is really fun. Yeah, apparently that was like somewhat improvised, and that's a really early take.
Really? When he hugs him?
Well, what a delight. I'm never watching these movies again.
He says.
I'm fully
Not
on the
even
TV
7?
show train. Well, I don't.
Come Christmas.
I do usually jump into some of them randomly here and there. They're like a comfort thing, but I'll just find others.
Happy Christmas, Harry.
Well, gifts and TikToks, though anything under a minute doesn't count. But we're going to have a new Happy Christmas, Harry, okay, with some new kids. All right.
Is that line in the book, though?
They do it well. Even that first year, they could do a Christmas episode.
Yes, they can always do
season
Christmas.
1 or 2.
British people love a Christmas episode.
They get huge ratings. We need to find, because we've kind of said things that were good changes in the movie or things we really liked. I think we should come up with a list of things in the lines in the movie that are in the movie, but not the book, that need to be kept around. It may only be a handful, but I think there could be some good options there.
Pay homage.
Things we can kind of get a greatest hits list from our episodes so far of each of these movies. See what we really need to, the notes we want to send over to the showrunners.
And this one, I'm so grateful they kept some of those big lines, like "Don't pity the dead, Harry, pity the living," like things like that, which almost kind of felt out of place. But I'm glad they kept those lines from the book. But just more like major things like that, like
I'm just spitballing here, but I think we should do an award show for the movies. So we will do some traditional categories like best actor, best actress. We can do best movie, best action scene, best dialogue. I will come up with categories and we will do a final award show for the movies to say goodbye to them before the television program comes along.
Forever.
Goodbye.
Wait, real quick though, do you guys realize that if everything goes to plan, and this series takes 10 years, then it's going to be 2037 when the Battle of Hogwarts actually happens on this TV series and the finale. Like, that is ridiculous. So just wanted to, if you don't feel old now, we will when we get to the end of it.
That I don't even want to I don't want to say out loud because it'll make it too real how old I would be. And I'm the youngest.
I'll be 51. I can say that. So.
Gosh, you'll be 51. I mean, doing a Harry Potter podcast at 51. Now we were pretty bad.
I will not let them shame me. I will do what I love. Dang it.
Oh my gosh, my kids. Oh my gosh. My kid will
I know.
My kids. There's only
my two oldest are about to turn 9 and 11 in the next few weeks, and they are going to be 12 years older than that.
We keep talking about our kids watching this. They're not going to want to watch it. They're going to be out.
There's a decent chance you will be a grandfather by the time this is over.
It's possible. It's possible.
Actually, it would be 23. This ends in
It'd be on the early side, but it wouldn't be far-fetched.
It would be on the early, but it could be possible.
If you send her to BYU. Anyway, next week, we're going to do one final quiz. It's going to mostly focus on 6 and 7, but we will have maybe some fun categories mixed in, but we'll try and make it efficient. I think we're going to stick with the whiteboard idea, and we'll just keep trying to improve the format. Right now, all three of us have a victory.
If you do not think our questions are good enough, submit questions.
Yeah,
Tim.
I will solicit the people for some questions, and we'll see if we can find some ways for audience participation. Speaking of participation with the HPTV podcast, hit us up on email at damn it.
Steven.
You cursed it. At HPTVPodcast@gmail.com, and then we are on Instagram and TikTok at HPTVPod, and it's very fun. Harry Potter is fun. That's why we're here.
Having fun isn't hard when you have a library card.
Wow, was that from Arthur?
That was true.
Yes.
Nice. I'm glad I remembered that.
It just made me think that when you said having fun.
I encourage learning, and not learning, reading. Both.
They kind of go together.
I'm really nailing it.
Can't learn everything from YouTube. You need books too.
I know. I'm getting back to books this year. I mean, it's mostly been fiction, but I'll learn soon enough,
All right.
You have to at some point.
Peace out, snitches. We're leaving. It's good. We're done.
That was a peace out and also a British bird.